They were making fun of him, and he really did not like it. Last time, we saw that Aragi Kai was surrounded by some adventurers who asked him not to take the quest. Aragi Kai calmly turned around, thanked them for the warning, and asked them to leave him alone. Hearing this, the boys got frustrated, thinking that Aragi Kai was very cocky. Seeing them surround him, people murmured that those guys were picking a fight with a newbie again. So, one of the boys tried to attack Aragi Kai, shouting that Aragi Kai needed a lesson. But to his surprise, Aragi Kai blocked the attack by grabbing his hand. The boy was shocked and shouted at Aragi Kai to let go of his hand. Aragi Kai calmly released it because he didn't want to fight. However, the boy then told his partners to attack Aragi Kai together and teach him a lesson. They all tried to attack together, but Aragi Kai easily defeated them and calmly left the guild. As he was leaving, he thought to himself that at least he now knew the level of the average adventurers in the guild compared to hero candidates. It was surprisingly very weak, so he decided to finish the quest as quickly as he could. The scene then shifted to the forest, where Aragi Kai thought that, according to the quest's information, the kobolds should be nearby. Suddenly, he noticed animal-like footprints on the ground. Aragi Kai followed them, and, as he went further, he sensed that someone was around him, and there was more than one. Aragi Kai also noticed that the mysterious creatures were pretty good at hiding, making him suspect they were kobolds. Out of nowhere, a kobold came up from behind and launched a sneak attack, but Aragi Kai sensed it and easily dodged. He also noticed that the kobold had a human sword in its hand, which meant it had probably defeated an adventurer. While he was thinking, another kobold came from behind and tried to attack. This time, Aragi Kai dodged and picked up some dust from the ground, throwing it into the kobold's eyes. While the second kobold was blinded, Aragi Kai struck the first kobold in the face. As it fell to the ground, he grabbed the sword and swiftly finished it off. Seeing this, the second kobold was shocked, but before it could react, Aragi Kai attacked and swiftly dispatched it with a knife as well. Aragi Kai then used his judgment skill to check the stats of the kobold and realized that these creatures posed no threat to him. Feeling confident, he decided he could easily hunt them down for more money. After some time, the scene shifted to the guild where everyone was looking at Aragi Kai in shock. Aragi Kai had brought the kobold's ears as proof of his subjugation. He asked Mia, the receptionist, if it was enough. She responded affirmatively and asked if he was sure he had really done it alone. Aragi Kai responded with a yes, explaining that hunting kobolds was very easy, but finding them had been the challenging part. He reflected on how, even though he had the skill to fight them, his exploration skill was still lacking. Upon seeing Aragi Kai return after defeating the kobolds, people around him were shocked and asked if kobold hunting was such an easy feat, speculating that Aragi Kai might have been a C-rank hunter from somewhere else. However, someone else mentioned they had heard Aragi Kai was still a newbie. Mia interrupted, asking Aragi Kai to wait while she went inside to prepare his reward. The scene then shifted to nighttime, where Aragi Kai was walking somewhere, counting his money. He wondered that he could earn so much by hunting those weak magic beasts, realizing that for now, securing funds for living was more important. So, he decided to stay in the city and earn money as an adventurer. Aragi Kai thought that building a network around the guild would help him gather information easily. Suddenly, someone appeared in front of Aragi Kai. Seeing the boy, Aragi Kai asked if he had any business with him, noting that the boy seemed much stronger than those he fought at the guild. The boy introduced himself as Lyle, a B-rank adventurer and the person in charge of the guild branch in the city. Aragi Kai responded with a casual, "So what?" Lyle then asked Aragi Kai if he was the same person who had caused trouble for his men earlier that day at the guild. Aragi Kai responded, saying that those boys were the ones who started the altercation first. In response, Lyle furiously shouted at Aragi Kai, asking him not to lie, as he had heard that an unknown newbie had beaten up his men. Aragi Kai then admitted that yes, he was the one who had beaten them. Hearing this, Lyle shouted that if that was the case, he wouldn't hesitate to teach Aragi Kai a lesson. Lyle then attempted to punch Aragi Kai several times, but to his frustration, Aragi Kai easily dodged every attack. Finally, Aragi Kai got bored and used his legs to trip Lyle, causing him to fall to the ground. Seeing this, Lyle was stunned and exclaimed, "What?" Aragi Kai then remarked to Lyle that his speed was impressive but unrefined, and his movements were too big, leaving openings. Hearing this, Lyle became furious and tried to attack again, demanding to know what Aragi Kai had said. Aragi Kai once more blocked his attack by grabbing his hand, then swiftly slammed him to the ground. Aragi Kai explained that he believed Lyle wasn't accustomed to fighting against humans because his quests usually involved magical beasts. In response, Lyle angrily asked why Aragi Kai had attacked his men if he had so much power. Aragi Kai responded that he had already explained it was a misunderstanding and offered to clarify everything from the beginning. Sometime later, the scene shifted to the guild where Lyle apologized to Aragi Kai, admitting it was his fault. Lyle even scolded and punished his own men for lying to him, acknowledging that it was his fault for not doubting their words. He shouted at his men, demanding that they apologize to Aragi Kai. They reluctantly apologized to Aragi Kai after Lyle insisted. Aragi Kai responded that as long as the misunderstanding was resolved, he didn't mind. He then mentioned that he had a question to ask. Lyle apologized again and assured Aragi Kai that he would gladly answer any questions he had. Aragi Kai then explained that he was a traveler and had registered as an adventurer to earn funds for his travels. Aragi Kai continued, mentioning that he had another reason for registering as an adventurer. Curious, Lyle asked Aragi Kai what he wanted, considering his formidable power and unknown circumstances. Aragi Kai responded that he was looking for a way to travel to another world. Upon hearing this, Lyle and his men were stunned and asked him to clarify. They wondered aloud whether such a thing was possible. One of them speculated that he had heard heroes' candidates came from another world. Aragi Kai confirmed that he was indeed talking about finding a method to enter the world of those hero candidates. Lyle responded, speculating that if that were the case, it likely involved magic, and they were not particularly familiar with magic themselves. Aragi Kai acknowledged that such information wouldn't be easy to come by, and expressed hope that Lyle and his group might have some clue. Lyle responded that there was possibly only one person who could provide clues, namely, the sage ManhwaCapped. Aragi Kai asked in confusion who ManhwaCapped was. Lyle was surprised and asked Aragi Kai how he didn't know, explaining that ManhwaCapped was an elf whose advice had greatly helped the country. Upon hearing this, Aragi Kai recalled having heard about ManhwaCapped somewhere and asked if it was true. Aragi Kai then recalled reading about an elven sage in books before, remembering that elves were known to live deep in forests. He explained that elves were now rare, with their stories considered legends, and they seldom left their forests to explore the outside world. Aragi Kai concluded that the elf who ventured outside their forest and gained wisdom became known as a sage. Lyle added that he had heard ManhwaCapped had been alive for over 100 years, and was renowned for possessing great wisdom and knowledge. Lyle also mentioned that ManhwaCapped was a renowned spellcaster with extensive knowledge of spells. Upon hearing this, Aragi Kai wondered if elves were known for their strong affinity with spirits, which aided them in mastering magic. Aragi Kai also considered that even if there wasn't a specific magic to send heroes back to their homeworld, perhaps with spells they could achieve it. Lyle's underling Raka interrupted, asking if the sage ManhwaCapped was still alive, mentioning he had never heard of ManhwaCapped, and noting that no one had ever seen ManhwaCapped, right? Lyle laughed and replied that he didn't have information about that. He then apologized to Aragi Kai for not providing any useful information. Aragi Kai reassured him that the information was indeed useful enough for him. Aragi Kai then mentioned that it was getting late, so he was heading back to the inn. Upon hearing this, Lyle expressed his curiosity, asking Aragi Kai what he planned to do after discovering a way to travel to another world. Aragi Kai smiled and cryptically responded that he would leave that to their imaginations. Confused, they watched as Aragi Kai left for the inn. The scene then shifted to 1 week later at the guild, where Mia was giving Aragi Kai his reward for completing the quest. After taking the reward and walking outside of the guild, Aragi Kai reflected on how it had already been a week since the incident with Lyle and his group. During that time, he had managed to save up some money. Suddenly, Lyle and Raka approached Aragi Kai and asked if his quest had been completed, suggesting they go for a drink together. Aragi Kai responded with a strange, somewhat sad look and declined their invitation. Seeing this, Lyle remarked that Aragi Kai was very boring and they bid him goodbye. While walking on the road, Aragi Kai reflected on how he had finally gathered some information about the sage. He shared that the sage's name was ManhwaCapped, and about a decade ago, ManhwaCapped had served as the country's advisor. Now retired, ManhwaCapped was said to be living near the western border. It's the place where the country was fighting against the Demon King's army. Aragi Kai then concluded that there was no reason for him to stay in the city any longer, deciding that he should go and visit the so-called sage ManhwaCapped. The scene then shifted to the holy temple city Alpha, where the hero candidates were having a meeting with someone. Heinrich, the captain of the Holy Knight Order's 8th Knight Corps, mentioned that it had been a month since he took on the responsibility of overseeing the hero candidates, replacing the duties of the fallen saintess. So Heinrich asked Midu Shuji if he had any complaints so far. Midu Shuji responded with a no, indicating that everything was fine because Heinrich was doing a good job. Heinrich expressed his happiness upon hearing those words, stating that the hero candidates were valuable assets to the country, and he treated them with respect accordingly. Hashimoto Murray thanked Heinrich for his concern but couldn't help but feel that he was different from Leonora. Despite this, she sensed something fishy about the situation. Heinrich then directed them to focus on the main topic, mentioning that during the previous day's meeting it had been decided to mobilize the hero candidates. Midu Shuji was surprised and asked if he interpreted correctly that they were being sent to the front line. Heinrich responded with a yes, confirming that the hero candidates were indeed being sent to the front line. He explained that there were still battles ongoing in the western border. Heinrich then showed them a map and explained that they would be mobilized to a fort on the front line. Midu Shuji responded that he understood and was about to ask about the promise. Heinrich interrupted, stating that he would fulfill his promise to protect those who were not suitable for battle. Midu Shuji gratefully thanked Heinrich for his assurance. Heinrich then explained that he would assign them some tasks in the meantime, emphasizing the need for everyone to contribute to earn their keep. Midu Shuji agreed, seeing the practical benefits of having work to do. Hashimoto Mere asked when they needed to leave. Heinrich responded urgently, suggesting they depart the following morning. He also asked Midu Shuji to inform everyone and ensure they were prepared for the journey. After leaving the hall, as Midu Shuji and Hashimoto Mere walked back, Hashimoto Mere expressed her relief that Heinrich had accepted their request. Midu Shuji agreed, admitting he had initially worried their demands were too much, but was glad everything had worked out in the end. Hashimoto Mere speculated that the knights lacked confidence in controlling the hero candidates without Leonora, which might explain their modesty. Midu Shuji agreed, noting that with Leonora gone, the knights would be on high alert. Hashimoto Mere then wondered about Aragi Kai, pondering where he had gone and what he was currently doing. The scene then shifted to the past when Leonora was killed, and Aragi Kai left the hero's candidates. The bishop asked tensely who could have killed Leonora. Nagase Rina responded that the culprit was Aragi Kai, revealing that he was one of the hero candidates. Hearing this, the bishop and his guards were shocked. The bishop urgently asked about Aragi Kai's whereabouts. Nagase Rina responded that Aragi Kai had run away, noting that he was surprisingly fast for a traitor. The guards began discussing among themselves, debating whether they should send an inquisitor immediately if Aragi Kai's betrayal was confirmed, or if they should first verify whether Saintess Leonora had truly been killed. Arashi Shunshuke furiously asked the bishop to clarify what he had just said. The bishop responded, clarifying that he wasn't outright denying the story, but suggesting there was a possibility that all the hero candidates had conspired together to eliminate Leonora. At that moment, Midu Shuji became tense. To everyone's surprise, Leonora's knight stepped forward and explained that he had witnessed the incident. He revealed that Midu Shuji and the others standing there had indeed been trying to protect the Saintess, but they were overwhelmed by Aragi Kai, resulting in Leonora's demise. The other knight also agreed with the account, prompting the bishop to state that he could believe it if her own knights were confirming the story. He then inquired about Aragi Kai's strength, asking if he was truly that formidable. Midu Shuji confirmed, saying yes, explaining that Aragi Kai had been concealing his true power all along. The bishop then invited them to have a more detailed conversation in his chamber and requested one of the hero candidates to accompany him. Unbeknownst to them, Kanzaki Rin was secretly eavesdropping from behind a wall, using her abilities on the knights. Midu Shuji felt relieved that they had managed to navigate the situation with Kanzaki Rin's assistance. The scene returned to the present time, where Hashimoto Mere asked Midu Shuji if he was still worried about Aragi Kai, suggesting it was pointless to be concerned. Midu Shuji smiled and agreed outwardly, but admitted that deep down he was troubled because he knew Aragi Kai had sacrificed himself for their sake. Midu Shuji was tense because he had resolved to protect everyone, but Aragi Kai had taken that burden upon himself, leaving Midu Shuji feeling powerless to help Aragi Kai. In the room, Midu Shuji gathered everyone and announced that they had been ordered to mobilize to the front line. He instructed all combat-ready personnel to prepare to depart by the next morning. Some of the boys became tense as the reality of facing a real battle set in. Nagase Rina approached them and remarked that it was too late for them to be afraid, reminding them that they had willingly chosen to join the combat group. Hano Shiori asked if they weren't the only ones being sent to the front line. Midu Shuji responded that they were being sent together with the 8th Night Corps under the command of Captain Heinrich. Kanzaki Rin asked Midu Shuji if there was any news about Aragi Kai. Midu Shuji explained that the temple had placed a bounty on Aragi Kai's head and had deployed a significant number of personnel to track him down. He added that there had been no news regarding Aragi Kai's whereabouts. Hearing this, Kanzaki Rin became visibly sad. Midu Shuji was about to console her, but before he could, Nagase Rena angrily shouted that she didn't care whether Aragi Kai was a traitor or not. If she found him, she would burn him to a crisp. Kanzaki Rin, feeling deeply upset, wondered why Aragi Kai hadn't taken her with him. The scene then shifted to the jungle, where all the heroes' candidates and knights, along with the guards, were traveling. As they went further, Arashi Shunshuke sensed something and stopped. At that moment, Hano Shiori also shouted that she was tired and asked if they could take a break. Hashimoto Mere responds that they just had a lunch break, so it's not possible. It seems they are going to walk until dark. Some boys were wondering if anything would happen since they had been walking for the past 2 days without anything happening. Arashi Shunsuke asks everyone to stop and they ask if something is wrong. Arashi Shunsuke responds that he can sense the presence of a magical beast behind the bushes. A knight arrives and shouts at the hero's candidates, asking why they stopped suddenly. Midoshuji explains that they sensed the presence of a magical beast nearby. The knight shouts that he can't see anything and reminds them that they must follow his orders, as they can't do anything without his permission. Hearing this, Arashi Shunsuke gets furious, grabs the knight by the neck and demands to know what he said. The knight, scared and tense, asks Arashi Shunsuke what he is doing. Even Midoshuji urges Arashi Shunsuke to stop. Arashi Shunsuke furiously shouts, asking why he should follow any orders from a worthless knight. Suddenly, something attacks Arashi Shunsuke, forcing him to release the knight to dodge. It's a magical beast with a rabbit face but weaponized hands. The guards get tense and announce that it's a sharp rabbit, urging everyone to prepare for battle. But before the guards could act, the sharp rabbits charged at them, knocking their swords away. One of the sharp rabbits glared furiously at a guard, ready to strike, but before it could harm him, a strong fire flame came out of nowhere and wiped out the sharp rabbit. It was Arashi Shunsuke who used his power to defeat the beast. The guard thanks Arashi Shunsuke for saving him, but Arashi Shunsuke tells the guard to step aside and not get in his way. Arashi Shunsuke then proceeded to easily defeat each of the sharp rabbits one by one. Some students were amazed to see Arashi Shunsuke's power, as it was far more destructive than they had seen before. But Arashi Shunsuke wasn't satisfied, feeling that his power still wasn't enough compared to Aragi Kai's. The scene then shifted to a moment when Aragi Kai had aimed a gun at Leonora. Arashi Shunsuke became furious upon seeing Aragi Kai once again. Arashi Shunsuke was actually frustrated because from the beginning, Aragi Kai had shown no fear towards him, indicating that Aragi Kai was definitely stronger. Aragi Kai's lack of reaction only reinforced this belief for Arashi Shunsuke. Arashi Shunsuke then shares that with the explosive power he received, he thought he was stronger, but it's very annoying for him to realize that Aragi Kai is even stronger. The scene then shifts to the present where Midoshuji interrupts Arashi Shunsuke's thoughts, asking what happened to him as he seemed to be in a bad mood. Arashi Shunsuke responds that it's nothing, but he doesn't like being ordered around by someone he considers worthless. Sometime later, the scene shifted to the western border of Dagoest Holy Kingdom at Fort Truss. Initially, Captain Amelia of the Holy Knights introduced herself as the leader of the Knight Order stationed there. Heinrich asks Amelia what happened to the watchdog captain. Amelia responds that he died around a week ago. Upon hearing this, the hero's candidates were a little bit shocked. Amelia then mentioned that she wanted to let them rest first after their long trip, but she couldn't finish her sentence. The guards interrupted, shouting that the army of the Demon King was coming to attack. Amelia cheerfully remarks that as they all heard, there's no time for rest, so she's counting on them. Midoshuji agrees and instructs every hero's candidate to prepare for battle. Arashi Shunsuke appears very determined and ready for the upcoming fight. The guards rang the alert bell, shouting that the demon army was approaching. The quantity of monsters was large, which stunned Max and made him wonder why there were so many monsters. Heinrich instructs the guards to start firing and reduce the number of monsters before they get closer. The guards begin shooting arrows, while the fire ability knights also hurl fireballs at them. Despite all the fireballs and arrows hitting the monsters, they continued moving forward, proclaiming their intent to destroy the humans. Midoshuji was shocked to see that the monsters were not retreating, despite taking heavy hits. Amelia explained that the monsters wouldn't be easily defeated by just those attacks. She warned the hero's candidates not to underestimate the monsters' endurance and stamina, emphasizing that humans were much weaker in comparison. Midoshuji tensely asks Amelia what they should do. Amelia instructs Midoshuji to follow Heinrich's orders and commands. She states that she will lead the Fourth Order Knights to fight the monsters herself. Heinrich explains that he had intended to say the same thing, but some individuals were already down there fighting the monsters. Midoshuji, confused, asks Heinrich about whom he was referring to. Nagase Rena informs Midoshuji that Heinrich was talking about Arashi Shunsuke and his group, as they had already gone down earlier. Midoshuji was stunned and asked Nagase Rena to repeat what she had just said. When the smoke cleared, they saw that humans had come to confront them directly. The monsters laughed at Arashi Shunsuke and the others, mocking them as fools who had come to meet their deaths. Arashi Shunsuke replied that he didn't care if they were demons or anything else. He would simply erase the monsters from existence. The fight began between them. Inside the fort, some monsters broke through a wall and attacked the guards. As a monster was about to strike down a guard, Midoshuji intervened, blocking the attack with his sword. Even the guard was surprised to see Midoshuji. Midoshuji then unleashed his more powerful attack, Sword Extend, and swiftly defeated the monster. Afterward, Midoshuji felt confident that he could handle it, realizing that his power was continuing to grow. He then shouts and tells the others that they can see it's a battle they can win, so without fear, let's fight." Hearing this, every hero's candidate is filled with enthusiasm for the fight. As Shuji prepares to fight again, he reminds himself not to hesitate, knowing that any sign of hesitation would unsettle the rest of the team, as he was their leader. He reflects on how Aragi Kai taught him the cost of his naivety. Hashimoto Meirei also urges everyone to stop watching and join Shuji in the fight. Nagase Reina begins using his attacks, and Kenzaki Rin starts dominating the monsters. In this way, the battle continues between the monsters and the hero candidates. Seeing the hero candidates fighting, the guards are amazed by their power as they dominate the Demon King's army. Heinrich shouts and instructs the guards to cover the hero candidates so they can push the demons back. They agreed and charged forward, engaging in a long battle until finally defeating the Demon King's army. Emilia joyfully announces their victory, and the guards begin celebrating. As the sunset approached, Shuji remained lost in deep thought. However, he was interrupted by Heinrich, who asked if it was his first time fighting like that and how he felt about it. Shuji responds that it's challenging to learn how to handle battles at such a large scale. He explains that during the battle, his perspective narrowed, making it difficult for him to give orders effectively. Heinrich praised Shuji for his efforts and credited the heroes' candidates for their role in winning the battle. However, he cautioned them to remain vigilant because although they had faced mid-ranked enemies with relatively small numbers, the high-ranking demons would pose a different challenge due to their superior capabilities. Shuji, upon hearing Heinrich's warning, becomes serious and assures him that he will remember it. The scene then shifts to the Demon Den where a monster is reporting the battle to Stone Gaia, one of the 4 heavenly kings of the Demon King's army. The monster apologizes for failing to fulfill his duties, which angers Stone Gaia greatly. The scene shifted to the Great Forest of Ekot, where Aragi Kai was traveling. As he neared the edge of the forest, he reflected that his journey to visit the sage should also be ending soon. Suddenly, out of nowhere, Aragi Kai felt something coming towards him, tongues aimed at hitting him. He managed to dodge them somehow, noticing their incredible speed, and wondered what kind of tongues they were. As he looked around more carefully, Aragi Kai spotted some new magical beasts. Upon scanning them, his system identified them as tongue baboons. After checking their status, Aragi Kai concluded that they were somewhat mediocre creatures. The tongue baboons attacked Aragi Kai again, but he easily dodged their assault. However, realizing they were closing in fast, Aragi Kai swiftly displayed his agility by jumping away from the spot to avoid their attacks. The tongue baboons attacked Aragi Kai again with their tongues, but this time Aragi Kai swiftly drew his knife and cut through the tongue in the middle. The tongue baboons were shocked by this move, and Aragi Kai continued cutting until he severed the entire tongue from their mouths. The baboon attempted to attack with its tail, but it was too slow for Aragi Kai, who dodged it easily and swiftly defeated the creature. Witnessing this, the other baboons became stunned and tense, unsure of what to do next. Aragi Kai, now furious, challenged them, asking if they were coming to him or if he would have to come to them and deliver their demise. The scene then shifted to some time later, with the corpses of the tongue baboons lying on the ground. Aragi Kai pondered that more powerful magical beasts seemed to be appearing gradually, wondering if it was because he was getting closer to the Demon King's territory. Or perhaps the forest was distant from cities where knights and adventurers were plentiful. As he ventured deeper, Aragi Kai thought that the further he went, the greater the likelihood of encountering powerful magical beasts untouched by humans. He was grateful that his appraisal skill allowed him to spot some of these beasts. So Aragi Kai decided to remain vigilant for the future. The scene then shifted to some time later, where Aragi Kai finally reached Mount Uragano, a natural defense barrier that slowed down the invasion of the Demon King's army. Aragi Kai then explains that the highest peak is called Reaper Wolf Mountain, and there's a rumor that Sage Alabama lives at the peak of that mountain. He then tried to recall if he remembered correctly that there should be a small village at the bottom of Reaper Wolf Mountain. When Aragi Kai reached the village, he was shocked to see the entire village on fire. He wondered if the village had been attacked by the Demon King's army. As Aragi Kai suspected, the village had indeed been attacked by the Demon King's army. Monsters were standing in the village, and Aragi Kai watched them from the rooftop of a house, hidden from view. Aragi Kai thought that the place was supposed to be far away from the front lines, so he resolved to be more cautious. The monsters asked their leader, named Hector, what they should do, suggesting that massacring the humans should be acceptable. Hector instructs them to cease the massacre and suggests enslaving the humans instead. He then asks if they have gathered any information about Elbana-Carrot. The monster confirms this, stating that the sage resides at the top of Reaper Wolf Mountain. Upon hearing this, Hector became frustrated that their intel was correct, which annoyed him greatly. He emphasized that their highest priority was Elbana-Carrot, the sage. Hector instructed the monsters to rest in the village for the night, and then prepare to climb Reaper Wolf Mountain the next day. A tense monster voices concern, mentioning that Reaper Wolf Mountain is known to be the nesting grounds of the Reaper Wolfen, which are untamable beasts. They believe that unless they defeat the Reaper Wolfen, they won't be able to reach their objective. The second monster asks for the reason behind the first monster's statement. The first monster explains that domination magic is ineffective against magical beasts with high intelligence. Additionally, he heard that the 4 heavenly kings once managed to tame a dragon, but it would be impossible for them to do the same with the Reaper Wolfen. Hector also mentioned that he wasn't particularly skilled in magic, so discussing abilities they didn't possess was pointless. Their only viable option was to defeat the untamable magical beast. The other monsters agreed with Hector's assessment. Seeing this, Aragi Kai concludes that the entire group is well organized under Hector's command, and wonders if this organization is due to the influence of the high-ranking demon. When Aragi Kai checks Hector's status, he learns that Hector is one of the very few high-ranking demons in the Demon King's army. Realizing this, Aragi Kai understands that it would be extremely challenging to confront Hector directly in battle. Suddenly, Hector also felt that someone was watching him, so he instructed the monster to go and investigate, sensing that someone was lurking around. Aragi Kai was impressed to see that Hector's senses were remarkably sharp. The monsters were searching for Aragi Kai, but he was relieved because he was skilled in hiding and lurking. Suddenly, Aragi Kai noticed that some humans had been captured by the monsters. They were all tied up with ropes. Despite seeing the captured villagers, Aragi Kai decided not to intervene as his main objective, like the demons, was to find and meet the sage Elbana Karet. He knew he had to climb the mountain ahead of the Demon King's army. The scene changed to the highest peak of Uragano Mountain, a dangerous area also known as Reaper Wolf Mountain. Agari had somehow climbed to this point. When he checked the map, it showed no established trail, so he decided to follow the paths used by wild beasts. He also noticed that his vision was unclear and the ground seemed unstable. Despite being in a hurry, he chose to proceed with caution. As Agari moved further, he sensed someone's presence nearby and thought it might be the rumored Wolfen of Reaper Wolf Mountain. Listening closely, he discerned not 1, but 2, no, 3 distinct sounds, gradually increasing in number. Agari realized that despite the wolves being hidden, their presence was overwhelming. Suddenly, out of nowhere, Agari found himself surrounded by the wolves on all sides. They were about to attack him, but he quickly jumped up and perched himself on a nearby tree. Agari was stunned to discover the reason why many people had gone missing on the mountain. He then used his appraisal skill to assess the status of the wolves. Upon checking, he found their status to be average, with their main strength lying in their coordination. While Agari was assessing their status, one wolfen charged towards the tree and broke it in the middle. Agari knew he had to act quickly, so he grabbed a leaf, infused it with mana, and then used it to attack the wolfen. Within seconds, the wolfen died after being cut in half. More wolfen tried to attack Agari, but each time he used the leaf to strike them down. 2 more were wiped out in the same manner. Now, a group of 5-6 wolfen were approaching to attack together. So this time, Agari infused mana into his own body. He believed that if he did it consciously, the effect would be significant. He thought this because Leonora had once mentioned that those who relied on divine protection often had weak control over their mana energy. He also remembered Leonora's words, where she had mentioned that those who constantly relied on divine protection were not accustomed to controlling mana at all. In her view, they were nothing but weaklings, which was why she could control them all. That's why they couldn't resist Leonora's enslavement magic back then. Agari knew he had to improve to overcome his weakness. He believed that mastering mana control would also enhance his resistance against enemy magic. He also realized that mana wasn't as powerful as divine protection, but if he wanted to become stronger in this new world, he knew he had to learn it. Agari decided to continue fighting the wolfen and practice mana control while climbing the mountain. Suddenly, Agari sensed something and quickly arrived at that location. He headed towards the leader of the wolfen, and upon reaching, he asked the wolfen to confirm. The other wolfen were confused about what Agari was attempting to do. But when the leader wolfen tried to attack Agari, he swiftly defended himself and defeated the wolfen without hesitation. As Agari looked up, he noticed that as soon as he defeated their leader, all the wolfen ran away. After all, it was the strongest magical beast of their pack. After that, Agari chased after the remaining wolfen by himself. Suddenly, to his shock, something special happened. He saw a red-colored copy version of the wolfen. Seeing this, Agari wondered if his skill was predicting the trajectory of the wolves' movements. His guess proved correct. It was indeed predicting the future trajectories. With this ability, he swiftly defeated 2 more wolves. Agari realized that with his predictive ability, he could see roughly 1 second into the future. Seeing this, the remaining wolves were frightened. However, Agari told them not to dare run away and instead join him in training a little longer. After some time, Agari had wiped out all the wolves. When he checked his own status, he discovered that his new skill, Divine Protection of Foresight, helped him see the future moves of his enemies. Agari then reflected on how, when he received the weak point detection skill, his appraisal skill also leveled up. This progression essentially upgraded his blessings from normal to enhanced, as appraisal now allowed him to see everything in sight. Exhausted, Agari decided to take some rest. Suddenly, he felt something and wondered if the Demon King's army had arrived. He abandoned his plan to rest and hurried towards the source of the presence he felt. The scene shifted to near the mountain peak, where monsters had captured an elven girl named Mare. Hector expressed his admiration for her persistence, noting it was to be expected from a disciple of the sage. He then declared that it was the end for her and ordered his monsters to eliminate the elven girl. Mare was about to say something when she was suddenly attacked by the monster. To everyone's surprise, Agari arrived and swiftly helped her dodge the attack by carrying her in his arms. Mare was stunned to see a human saving her. Confused, the monster asked Agari who he was, whether he was a new enemy. Agari understood that there were a total of 10 monsters, with their leader Hector being a high-ranking demon. Mare asked Agari why he helped her. Agari responded by asking if she was a disciple of Sage ManhwaCapped. When Mare confirmed that she was, Agari explained that his reason for helping her was because he had some business with Sage ManhwaCapped. Agari used his appraisal skill on Mare and discovered that she was half-elf. Additionally, he found that she had a spell skill in her skill set. Hector remarked that he didn't need to ask who the human was, but he was certain that Agari was definitely an enemy. He asks his monsters to kill both the elf and the human. Agari realized that in order to save the girl and earn a favor from the sage, he had to defeat those monsters. The monsters then attacked Agari, and with the help of his foresight ability, he attempted to predict their future movements. His foresight ability proved invaluable, as Agari could predict the monsters' future moves, allowing him to effectively block their attacks. The monsters were shocked, and in a swift motion, Agari swiftly dispatched all of them with his knife. The other monsters were stunned by the scene they witnessed. Agari pondered that as long as his foresight was active in close-quarter combat, he felt invincible. However, his main concern was the duration of the skill and how many minutes he had left. On the other side, Hector instructed his monsters not to charge recklessly, but to use magic to attack the human. The monsters agreed and began shooting magic bullets at Agari. Upon seeing the magic bullets, Agari became tense, realizing the danger they posed. However, to his relief, Mare used a spell from Sylph, the wind spirit, and blew away all the bullets. Agari asked in surprise if it was a spell, realizing the power used by borrowing the strength of the spirits, an art reserved for elves. Mare confirmed it was, and thanked Agari, mentioning that because of him, the spirits seemed able to rest for a bit. Frustrated, Hector declared that they wouldn't win at this rate and decided to join the fight himself. Agari became serious and asked Mare, referring to her as an elf, to stop the rest of the monsters from intervening while he dealt with their leader. Mare responded that she could handle it, and requested Agari to stop calling her elf as her name was Mare. Agari acknowledged her request and expressed his trust in her, addressing her as the disciple of the sage. Mare got furious and shouted that her name was Mare, but soon she became frustrated and asked Agari to forget about it. Here, Agari faced Hector head-on, only to find that Hector was very strong. Despite clashing swords, Agari used Hector's sword to propel himself into the air and attacked Hector with his knives. However, Hector blocked the attack with his own sword. Hector then counterattacked, but Agari dodged swiftly and managed to slash him with the knife. Hector received some damage and admitted he was surprised that Agari predicted his attack, considering it a good attempt. Agari, on the other hand, was shocked to see that the wound wasn't superficial. He became tense, realizing the power of a high-ranking demon, and understood that he would likely be dead without his foresight ability. Hector commented that if Agari were not human, he would have been able to defeat him easily. Agari then used his appraisal skill to check Hector's status and found that in addition to his physical abilities and sharp senses as a high-ranking demon, Hector also possessed a swordsmanship skill level of 5. Agari, realizing he had a significant disadvantage in a direct battle with Hector despite his foresight skill, decided to attempt a new strategy. Hector shouted at Agari that if Agari wasn't going to come to him, then he would come to battle it out. Despite this, Agari managed to dodge Hector's attack somehow. Finally, Agari got cut in his hand by Hector's attack, leaving him tense. He realized there was no point in predicting the future if his body couldn't keep up, as the physical gap between them was too large for him to bridge. Hector laughed and mocked Agari, asking if he was only going to run like that. Suddenly, Agari took out his gun and shot at Hector, but Hector easily blocked the bullets with his reflexes, using his hand. Agari saw that, and though he was relieved that the bullets had penetrated Hector's hand and injured him, Hector was stunned. He shouted, demanding to know what kind of device Agari was using. Such an impudent device. Furious, Hector attacked Agari, who was prepared to shoot with his gun. However, Hector managed to dodge the bullets and warned Agari not to underestimate him, as he could easily predict the trajectory of the bullets. Agari ran out of bullets, so he threw knives at Hector, who blocked them with his sword. Suddenly, Much to Hector's surprise, Agari stopped attacking and silently sat down on the ground. Before Hector could react, Agari threw a bomb towards him. Hector wondered what it was and rushed towards Agari to attack. However, before he could reach Agari, the bomb exploded, shocking the other monsters. Even Mare was surprised to see it and wondered who Agari really was, as he displayed such amazing skills. She noted that Agari was dominating against a high-ranking demon, despite being human. On the other hand, Agari was ready with a knife in his hand, realizing he had no ammunition left for the handgun he kept as an emergency, and that the grenade had been his last resort. Seeing Hector getting back up, Agari realized that relying on guns and grenades wouldn't be enough to defeat him. Hector was now furious because Agari was using unfamiliar devices in their fight. Hector furiously attacked Agari, who dodged the assault. During this moment, Agari decided to activate his weak point detection skill, but first, he needed to carefully analyze Hector's movements. As Hector prepared to attack, Agari analyzed the future trajectory of the attack and identified its weak point, the neck. Agari positioned himself in advance with his knife ready at that spot. Hector moved forward, unwittingly driving himself onto Agari's waiting knife, which struck him in the neck. Hector was shocked, wondering how Agari had managed to strike him with such precision. Agari acknowledged that weak point detection was a powerful skill, but it drained mana quickly. Feeling suddenly fatigued, Agari sat down on the ground. Agari became tense as he realized he had run out of mana, which was bad news for him. The monsters also noticed that their leader Hector was dead, but seeing that Agari was exhausted, they decided to attack him. Mare also became tense because her spirits were exhausted, and she wanted to help Agari, at least to repay him for saving her. As the monsters charged towards Agari, suddenly someone cast a fire spell, engulfing the entire group of monsters in flames and wiping them out. Agari noticed that the firepower from the flames was on a different level compared to Nagase Reina's. Suddenly, a voice came from Mare's side, apologizing for being late. Mare was happy to see her and addressed her as master. Hearing this, Agari realized she was the sage ManhwaCapped whom he had been seeking. ManhwaCapped thanked Agari, acknowledging that he seemed to have been trying to help her disciple based on the situation. Agari replies that it was just a coincidence and asks if she is the great sage ManhwaCapped. ManhwaCapped confirms with a yes and adds that compared to before, she is now just old and frail. Agari tried to use his appraisal skill, but his mana was too low. Still, Agari knew that the sage ManhwaCapped was very strong and he would never be able to defeat her. So he guessed there was no point in hiding anything. He had to be honest with her. ManhwaCapped asked Agari if he had some business with her, and he responded with a yes. ManhwaCapped said that there was no reason for someone to come to her without a purpose, and she thanked him for saving her disciple. She promised to do her best to answer his questions. Mare then asked ManhwaCapped if they should head back home, as the area reeked of blood and the wolves might come soon. ManhwaCapped agreed with Mare and asked Agari to come along, saying he also needed some rest. Agari agreed, and while walking with them, he thought that so far the situation was favorable and helping her disciple was worth it. The scene then shifted to some time later when Agari and the others arrived at ManhwaCapped's house. After entering, Mare said she was going to take a bath. Agari then asked ManhwaCapped why she was living in such a remote place. ManhwaCapped responded that she had several reasons, but mainly because she wanted to return to nature. Even during her retirement, many people tried to take advantage of her. Agari responded that he understood since her home wasn't easy to visit. ManhwaCapped shared that sometimes skilled people like him do come to her home, and she wasn't an evil person who would reject those who seek her out. Agari directly told her that he was one of the hero candidates entrusted with the mission to subjugate the Demon King. ManhwaCapped responded by saying that they were the third generation of hero candidates. She also mentioned that she had heard rumors but never expected that they had already been summoned. Upon hearing about the third generation, Agari was stunned and then recalled Leonora's words implying that they had summoned several hero candidates before. ManhwaCapped mentioned that they had also summoned hero candidates roughly 4 years ago, which was their second summoning. The first summoning had occurred about 10 years ago. She shared that both generations of hero candidates had gone to subjugate the Demon King and were annihilated in the process. Since then, the ritual of summoning had been sealed off and was never to be used again. However, Saintess Leonora was planning to break the taboo and summon the third generation. ManhwaCapped also said that she opposed the idea because she believed it was reckless to entrust the fate of a country to someone from another world, regardless of whether it was a god's wish or not. Agari calmly shared that he had already taken care of Leonora, so they shouldn't be able to perform another ritual to summon people from another world. Upon hearing this, ManhwaCapped found it hard to believe because she thought it was impossible for him to defeat Leonora. Agari smiled and replied that there are several ways to defeat someone, even with a large gap in skill and power. Hearing this confidently, ManhwaCapped laughed and responded that it seemed true, but it was still amusing for Leonora to be defeated by her own pawn. Elbanacaret asked if she should say that Leonora had reaped what she sowed. She also mentioned that she understood Agari's wish now, as it was natural for someone to want to return home. She then said that she didn't like talking too much, so she would get straight to the point. She couldn't send them back to their home with her spells. Upon hearing this, Agari was shocked and saddened. He asked if she still had any clues about how they could return home. Elbanacaret shared that summoning with human magic should be possible, but sending someone back wasn't feasible anymore. That knowledge had been lost for ages, as there was no reason to research it further. Agari mentioned that Leonora had said the same thing, and asked if in short, they had to defeat the Demon King and there was no other option. Elbanacaret responded that it was likely the case, or perhaps with the aid of some demonic arts, it might be achievable to some extent. Upon hearing about demonic arts, Agari said he guessed he needed to investigate that next. Elbanacaret apologized for not being able to help him further and expressed her gratitude for him saving her disciple. She promised that if she found anything useful, she would let him know. Agari thanked Elbanacaret for her words. In response, Elbanacaret smiled and suggested that perhaps he might be able to defeat the Demon King. Agari replied that he didn't want to undertake such troublesome work, but if there was no other choice, he would have to defeat the Demon King. Seeing the rage and killing intent on Agari's face, Elbanacaret became tense and thought that Agari seemed different compared to the other hero candidates she had encountered so far. It felt like he had grown up in a place that was dark and cold. Lastly, Agari thanked Elbanacaret for her time, and asked her to contact Siren from the Adventurers Guild if she found anything useful. Elbanacaret then decided to entrust Mare to Agari. Just as Mare emerged from the bathroom after her bath, she suggested to Agari that he should also take a bath, considering he must have gotten dirty after climbing the mountain and the battle. Agari agreed with Mare, saying he thought she was right and decided to take a bath. Elbanacaret interrupted them and told Agari that she had a suggestion. Agari asked what it was. Elbanacaret then asked Agari why he didn't bring her disciple on his journey. Mare was stunned and asked if by disciple, Elbanacaret meant her. The scene then shifted to Veldora Demonic Kingdom's eastern region, the frontline battlefield with the Holy Kingdom of Degarest, where Agari and Mare were heading towards a destination. It seemed Agari had to take Mare with him on his journey. Agari praised the weather and mentioned that he had heard the weather in the demonic territory was harsh. Mare responded that the place where they were standing used to be the territory of the Holy Kingdom until recently, and the harsh weather should be even more severe deeper into the Veldora Kingdom. Agari understood that the territory had been invaded by the Demon King's army. Mare also mentioned that around the western region of the Uragano mountain range, there's a big city called Nutrat, and there should be villages around that city. She also mentioned that currently, the city had fallen to the Demon King's army and had become the front line, which was their destination. She estimated it would take them about 2 days of walking to reach there. Agari hesitantly asked what had happened to the people who were living in that village. Mare sadly responded that half of the population had been killed, and the other half were enslaved by the demons to perform forced labor. Some people managed to escape to the other side of the mountain. Upon hearing Mare's account, Agari nodded in understanding and admired her knowledge, feeling that bringing her along on the journey was the right decision. The scene then shifted to the past when Elbanacaret asked Agari about taking Mare on his journey. When Agari initially declined, Mare was shocked and shouted at him to at least consider her. Elbanacaret started laughing after hearing Agari's comment and advised him not to speak like that. She pointed out that for someone who had recently arrived in this world, Mare would be quite useful due to her extensive knowledge passed down through generations. Elbanacaret also mentioned that she had been looking for an opportunity to send Mare on a journey, but she was concerned about sending her adorable disciple alone. Hearing this, Agari looked confused and asked Elbanacaret why she was still entrusting Mare to him, since Elbanacaret could have taken Mare out on her own. Elbanacaret responded that she no longer had the capability to embark on journeys herself. Despite appearing young and healthy from a human perspective, her time and abilities were limited, and then someone suddenly appeared and saved her disciple's life. Mare also expressed her appreciation, but she needed time to think. Before Mare could finish her sentence, Agari interrupted and stated that he was planning to infiltrate the demon's territory, warning that it would be a dangerous journey. He emphasized that if Mare were to slow him down, he would leave her behind. So Elbanacaret approached Mare and reminded her that ultimately it was her decision, as it was her life after all. Mare focused on the phrase, her life, and exclaimed that she understood, declaring that she was ready to go with Agari. The scene returns to the present, where Agari tensely commented that Mare seemed tired. He reminded her that they still had a full day of walking ahead, in case she hadn't realized. Mare asked him not to expect too much from the body of a spellcaster, as she had been training herself physically the entire time, despite her magical focus. So Agari suggested they call it a day and rest. Hearing this, Mare was surprised and asked if he hadn't said he would leave her behind if she slowed him down. Agari asked Mare what kind of nonsense she was talking about, reassuring her that he wouldn't leave her behind for such a reason. He then asked her to hurry up and set up the camp, Mayor was impressed by his response and replied that she understood and would set it up in a few minutes. The scene then shifted to nighttime, with Agari and Mayor sitting around the bonfire. Mayor was eating and Agari was staring at her hesitantly. He then mentioned that she probably already understood, but the journey would soon become dangerous. And he wouldn't hesitate, even if the journey became dangerous, because he was determined to return to his home world. However, he acknowledged that Mayor might not have as compelling a reason to join him so far. Agari then asked if he was correct in assuming that ManhwaCapped wasn't lying, and that Mayor had her own reasons for joining him. Mayor responded that she didn't know how to explain it well, but she had experienced loss. Her previous home, the Elven village, had been destroyed by the Demon King's army. Upon hearing this, Agari asked if the war was supposed to be between humans and monsters. Mayor responded that such distinctions were trivial, as the demons overwhelmed all races. She explained that her father, mother, and even her little brother had been killed. She survived because her father sacrificed himself as bait to distract the monster's attention. She also recounted that during that time she couldn't do anything to help, and after the Demon King's army left the village, she was left for dead. It was then that ManhwaCapped found her and took her in, becoming her master and mentor. Agari stated that he wasn't interested in her past, he just wanted to know her goal. Mayor responded that he should have deduced it from her story. The reason she became ManhwaCapped's disciple and a spellcaster was to gain the power to defeat monsters. Mayor's eyes filled with fury and vengeance as she declared that everything she had learned from her master over the past 10 years, including her training, was all for the sake of revenge. She vowed to personally wipe out the man who had killed her family with her own hands. Agari was surprised and asked for the name of the demon. Mayor responded that it was one of the 4 heavenly kings, Wimberg, who was known as the Heavenly King of the Wind, and also one of the highest leaders in the Demon King's army. Agari then asked if the reason Mayor agreed to join him was to get closer to Wimberg. He also mentioned that for now, he didn't have any personal reason to fight against the demons. Mayor also mentioned that she didn't understand why ManhwaCapped had given her permission after meeting Agari. Since they were discussing their masters, she admitted she didn't know what ManhwaCapped was thinking, which was why she would follow Agari's instructions for the time being. Agari responded that he understood her situation. He then recalled ManhwaCapped asking him to take care of Mayor, confident that he could handle her. Agari then understood why ManhwaCapped hadn't allowed her disciple to go on a journey alone. Mayor might have risked her life aimlessly pursuing revenge. Mayor apologized to Agari for bringing up such a heavy topic and reassured him not to worry, as she didn't want to involve him in her quest for revenge. Agari understood that Mayor was determined to pursue her revenge herself. He asked Mayor to end the conversation and go to sleep, as they had to travel the next day. Mayor agreed and mentioned that she would set up spirits to keep watch. They would alert them if any monsters approached. While Mayor slept peacefully, Agari pondered about the 4 heavenly kings of the Demon King's army. He observed Mayor sleeping soundly, then quietly exited the tent. He reflected on how his previous enemy had been a high-ranking demon, and now he faced another one even stronger. Realizing they needed to become stronger before facing such powerful foes, Agari quickly decided to set aside those thoughts for now. He recognized that worrying about that wasn't productive at the moment. The scene shifted around the western corner of the Holy Kingdom's fort, where the high-ranking officials said that now, with the heroes' candidates, it's the right time to go on the offensive. Others agreed and asked where they should begin their attack. Amelia also said that attacking Fort Arliss would be a good start. It used to be their fort, so this is a chance to take it back since it is currently their frontline base. If we break them, the enemy will retreat for sure, said Heinrich. He responded that it was a reckless plan, noting that they had been on the defense until now, so why were they suddenly going on the offensive? The high-ranking officials asked Heinrich what would happen even if those hero candidates were his subordinates. Amelia said that Heinrich had a point, but the enemy might still be underestimating them for now, so they wouldn't expect a sudden offensive. She then asked Midu Shuji if his body had been discovered. Midu Shuji responded with a yes, adding that if they told him to fight, he would wield his sword. After that, Heinrich, Midu Shuji, and Hashimoto Mere headed back. Heinrich said that the plan would be executed the next day, and noted that it was rare for Amelia to be this aggressive. Hashimoto Mere asked if Heinrich thought the plan would go smoothly, noting that everyone was pretty confident back there. Midu Shuji responded that if they were going to do it anyway, it was good to be on the offensive while the enemy was still regrouping their forces. So, he believed it wasn't a mistake. Heinrich responded that they were relying too much on the hero candidate's power and abilities, which made them overconfident. He also said that although they were only reinforcing their defenses outside of their command, they couldn't disobey an order from the higher-ups. Hashimoto Mere asked tensely, "We didn't have any choice, right?" Heinrich responded, "Of course, I'll still support them as best as I can, but the hero candidates are still the key to this operation, so please tell them to get a good night's sleep." Suddenly, Midu Shuji became tense and wondered what was happening, as he suddenly had a bad feeling about it. But they didn't have any other choice. The scene then shifted to the next day near Fort Arliss, where the hero candidates and Heinrich with his team were ready to attack the fort. Nagase Rena asked why they were attacking at that hour when it was bright and morning. She questioned if a surprise attack would be more effective at night. Heinrich responded that demons could see clearly in the dark, so attacking at night might actually put them at a disadvantage. Midu Shuji mentioned that he wanted to confirm their goal, to defeat the monster's leader while the main force distracted the monsters. He pointed out that the monster's leader was likely to be a high-ranking demon. Midu Shuji told the hero candidates that he would take the lead when the battle started. He instructed them that if he wasn't nearby, they should either buy him some time or retreat. Just then, a guard approached Heinrich and informed him that there was a message from the main force, indicating it was time to begin the operation. Heinrich instructed Midu Shuji and the others to charge in. Without hesitation, everyone attacked the fort and stormed inside. Amelia shouted for everyone to annihilate the monsters. Unbeknownst to them, their actions were being observed by Stone Gaia, the king of the demon army. The scene then shifted a few seconds later, where Heinrich and some hero candidates entered the main tower of the fort. The monsters inside were stunned and attempted to attack, but Midu Shuji swiftly cleared them out in a matter of seconds. Heinrich cautioned Midu Shuji not to let his guard down, as there was still a high possibility that the enemy's leader was in the hall. Suddenly, they found themselves surrounded by monsters from both sides. Some hero candidates asked Midu Shuji what they should do. Heinrich then instructed Midu Shuji to leave their back to the 8th Night Order and proceed toward their goal. Midu Shuji agreed with Heinrich's plan and called Nagase Rena. Nagase Rena confidently replied that Midu Shuji didn't need to tell her, as she knew her role was to eliminate the monsters standing in their way. She unleashed her power, and the others joined in, swiftly defeating the monsters in front of them. Finally, when they opened the big door, they were stunned to see a humanoid figure. Sam tensely asked, "What the hell is this now?" Arashi Shunshuki also asked the Demon King if this figure was their leader. Stone Gaia then revealed that he was one of the 4 heavenly kings of the Demon King's army. Kanzaki Rin and Hashimoto Murray became tense upon hearing this. Midu Shuji also felt uneasy, realizing that the pressure emanating from Stone Gaia was far from normal. Stone Gaia drew his sword and challenged them to see who was stronger. Midu Shuji instructed everyone to get ready, but deep down he was trying to muster his courage. He knew that if they were defeated by Stone Gaia, the sacrifices made by the main force would be in vain. So they were all ready to fight, but instead of attacking, Stone Gaia sat down and touched the ground. Midu Shuji was confused, but to their surprise, an orange circle appeared around Stone Gaia. The hero candidates became tense upon seeing it. Dirt surged from the ground, summoning numerous golems that appeared before Raka and the others, shocking them. Stone Gaia then commanded the golems to attack and eliminate the hero candidates. Midu Shuji instructed everyone to hold off the golems. Narumi Yoshia responded affirmatively and began attacking with his nature power, cutting down golems with sharp leaves. Arashi Shunshuki also joined in, punching through the golems with fire blasts. Arashi Shunshuke laughed and remarked that no matter how many golems there were, those slow-moving creatures were nothing for them. However, Stone Gaia then used his magic, causing the broken golems to regenerate their bodies. Upon seeing the golems regenerate, the hero candidates were surprised and wondered how it was possible. Nevertheless, they resumed the fight, breaking down the golems only to witness them regenerate again. There was a moment when Raka was about to be accidentally struck by a golem, but to his relief, Kanzaki Rin used her domination attack to take control of some golems. However, when another person attempted to strike one of the golems, to their surprise, the golem still managed to strike back. Hashimoto Murray attacked furiously with her telekinesis, destroying the golems. However, to their frustration, the golems began regenerating again shortly afterward. Arashi Shunshuki expressed frustration, realizing there seemed to be no end to the golem's regeneration. At that moment, Narumi Yoshia recalled similar situations from manga he had read before, where defeating the summoner was often the best strategy in such cases. Narumi Yoshia suggested to Midu Shuji that they handle the golems and advised him to focus on confronting the main demon king instead. Midu Shuji responded that he understood, and he and Arashi Shunshuki would deal with the summoner. They charged furiously towards Stone Gaia to attack. Stone Gaia smiled and remarked to the hero candidates that they were underestimating him. Stone Gaia used magic again, summoning stones from the ground and hurling them toward Midu Shuji. Midu Shuji tensely tried to dodge the attack by running, but to his shock, the stones followed him wherever he moved. Midu Shuji found himself unable to avoid the stones and was hurt by them. Seeing this, everyone shouted his name in concern, but Midu Shuji reassured them that he was all right. Unbeknownst to Stone Gaia, this was actually a distraction by Midu Shuji to allow Arashi Shunshuki to sneak up behind him for a surprise attack. They succeeded in their plan, and Arashi Shinshuke managed to sneak up behind Stone Gaia and deliver a powerful punch infused with his full flame power. Everyone watched in anticipation, wondering if Arashi Shinshuke had managed to defeat the Demon King. But when the smoke and dust cleared, it revealed that Arashi Shinshuke had collided with a wall made of dust and clay. To everyone's surprise, the wall then attacked Arashi Shinshuke like a punch to his stomach, causing him to faint. Stone Gaia laughed mockingly and asked if that was all the hero candidates had in them. As the story took a brief pause, what do you think will happen next?